Christophe and I am working for Umicore, and I am responsible for the marketing and communication activities of one of its business units. Umicore is a circular materials technology company, and what we do is actually done for a better life, and the materials that we provide are used in daily applications. Over the last years, we have identified that our strong focus on sustainability was corresponding with the trends of evolution of a society, and we have decided to really keep this focus on two key activities. That's the transformation of the mobility towards a more sustainable mobility, and the manufacturing and providing of more advanced materials that are also required in a more sustainable world. I was speaking about the pioneering activity that we had in terms of sustainability. Actually, RISE 2030 is the next step of the development of Umicore. That's the new strategy that we have developed, and that is really positioning us as the circular materials technology company. And the aim is that for every material that we provide, we also look at how we can make its use more efficient, make it reuse, and also make sure that it can be recycled at the end of its lifetime. Now, if we look at RISE a little bit more, RISE has also a meaning, and that means that we want to be a reliable partner for the transformation of mobility or transformation of the industry. We want to keep being an innovation-focused and driven company. Of course, sustainability for us remains a key element of our journey and a key focus of our work. And finally, the E stands for excellence. So that's really excellence in our operation, excellence in the service that we want to bring to customers, and excellence in delivering what we have promised. So if we look at the chemical and pharmaceutical industries, these are industries that are really highly consuming energy, materials, scarce material like water, metals for catalyst, toxic materials. All these elements have to be improved to be more efficient, to use less scarce material, to use less resources that will end up being scarce. These are elements we can help. So we have a strong experience in dealing with scarce materials, with metals and precious metals. Same with high toxic or high sensitive materials, and that's the type of support we can bring, whether it's to manufacture catalyst, to look at how the processes for manufacturing chemicals can be optimized, shortened, improved in a way that you have less waste. And we can also look at how we can help at the end to recover the valuable part of the metals, or the valuable parts of the waste of the processes. So if we look at how we can optimize processes, we can look into a few directions. One is really looking back into the whole process and looking at what are the steps that can be eliminated by using another type of catalysis, redesigning the whole synthesis to shorten it. Generally, with using homogeneous catalyst, one can manage to do that, shorten it, use milder conditions to run the reaction, use less solvent, have better yields, and then you have less starting material use and less waste created. So these are the aspects we can look at. That's something that we as Umicore can do. We can support. We have a team that is able to support in this troubleshooting of a process. That's one aspect. The other aspect is looking at what are the wastes and how one can recover from the waste the parts that have value. So if we use catalyst, for instance, it's making sense to recover the metal out of the waste, and this is something that we can also support to do that. And we can do that as a complete approach to make sure that we have the best efficiency all along the process. So if we look at RISE, one of the aspects is the reliable partner for transformation that we aim to be. And to be that, it means to be customer-centric. And the way I would define customer centricity is not only looking at how we can serve the need of the customer, but it's also looking at how we understand the environment the customer is living. So the market the customer is active, what are the trends, how the market will develop, what can be the pain points of the customer, but also what can be in this market something new. We can use customer centricity to be more innovative and to be actually efficient with innovation if we have a good collaboration with the customer. So I think there are these two aspects, knowing the market, knowing the customer, of course, having good connection with the customer and having a good collaboration. And finally, sometimes there are things the customer is interested in or the market needs that we cannot do. So it's also important in this customer centricity to have good connections with third parties that can help to bring the competencies, the technology, the know-how we don't have. This is very difficult to design what's going to be the future. The future per se is uncertain, and actually to try to answer to that, in the development of our strategy, we developed 4 scenarios that are based on what are the trends that we have seen today in the market, in geopolitics, in demographic, in economics, and these 4 scenarios, they are extreme, and they are going to guide us to take strategic decisions. At the end, none of these 4 scenarios will be the one that happens, but the idea behind is that we are more agile and that we can be more proactive in looking at how the future is becoming the present. And so these 4 scenarios, maybe some words on these. We have been from very optimistic to very pessimistic. So the most pessimistic one is the world is falling apart. We are not reaching any of the climate change targets that we have. The society is also falling apart, and we have a scenario that is called let's not go for zero. So everybody is going to have to find a way to adapt to really damaged and changed work. The second one, the second of these scenarios is what we call learning to adapt. So we are not managing to reach the targets that will make the world somehow living without we have too much of an impact. But we live in a world where there's still a consensus that we have to work together, and we have a common collaboration between states. So that's a world where we are going to have ways to adapt to the changes. We have a third one that we called that is living actually in a multipolar environment. So that's many ways to success, and that's a world where we have a lot of political differences, but there is one common agreement. This is that we have to work together in reaching the targets and hopefully reaching them in 10, 15 years. And finally, the last, the most optimistic one is the one we could call a word for a better life. That's the word where we have really tackled from the beginning, and from now on we are tackling the issues of climate change, and we are managing in a few years from now to reach the targets that make that the world remains livable for most of the population. And that's a world also with a lot of collaboration between industries, economies, countries, and governments. To answer to that question, we can look back at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They have been defined by the United Nations in 2015, and they actually cover a wide range of activities, topics that have to be changed if we want to really have a world that is tackling the climate challenge, but also fighting against poverty, making sure that we have health accessible for all, and so and so. And many of these targets, they are not directly linked to the enterprise, so we have no direct influence whether there is a stable health system or if the democratic system is in place in the country. However, we have, as industries and as companies, we have a power, and that's also beneficial if we use that power to make sure that we live in a stable, long-term thinking world, because that's going to be good for our businesses. So yes, we can do things. We can, I think, ideally, the enterprise would have to think it is acting as a citizen and looking at how to support the society to become more stable, more fair or fairer, and making sure that our businesses are more stable and more thriving on the long term. So besides the long-term aspect that if we have a stable world and a stable society, we will have stable businesses for our companies, we can look at a more immediate benefit. And the more immediate benefit is, on one side, if we look at having more efficient processes, more efficient chemical synthesis, more efficient catalyst, that's all adding value to the business of our customers, so they can directly benefit from that, from working with us. And I think it's the first step. We can also think about having more efficient organizations with looking at having more diversity, more inclusion, and that's helping also to get more effectiveness, more innovation, and it's also beneficial at the end to run our businesses on a more successful manner.